Ladies and gentlemen, good evening once again. This is going to be light, frothy, and very, very interesting. For those who have this long-held desire of getting their startup funded, they are not 2, but 4 people whom you can pitch to. So how much of this current AI bubble is hype, hoopla, real bubble, and a lot of hope and a lot of investment is what we are going to discuss with Apoorve, Rahul, Siddharth, and Nithin. All of them put in their money, their clients' money, and of course, write in $1 million checks and reap $1 billion gains. So let's start with Apoorve first, ladies and gentlemen, managing partner at Prosus, a venture capitalist himself, and has put in a lot of his money, his clients' money, into artificial intelligence-led companies which are doing great work. Apoorve, to you, how much of this ongoing boom has roots in India? Are there any good Indian companies that are doing serious work in artificial intelligence? And where do we stand at this point?
Well, first of all, thank you, Shailendra, for inviting. Great to be part of this panel. And a very pertinent question. I think sovereignty and what does India offer to this whole AI world is a question that we grapple with almost every day. And look, I think in our own personal view, I think the biggest advantage that India has is probably the population scale it has, and therefore the kind of data it generates. It happened with UPI, it happened with bureaus, and there's still like such a massive amount of unstructured data that we sit on today, right? And I'll probably take one example, one of our portfolio company, and then one in general for financial services. We are investors in Meesho, which is today the largest horizontal e-commerce company. They are going public, so I'll not quote a lot of numbers, but they have 21 crore annual transacting users. They process 2 petabytes of data every day, and they do 66 trillion feature retrievals every day, right? With that kind of data, funnily, that's probably the best AI company that we have in our portfolio, right? And they have now opened up their whole ML stack and made it open source for other founders and startup companies to leverage that data upon. Because when 21 crore users come on your app, give your browsing history, your purchasing history, your preferences, etc., that creates a very strong moat, right? So that's one example of where India's unique advantage lies in terms of creating its own models and plain AI. The other example I would say on unstructured data is, again, traditional lending businesses and the way we do it. There are so many feet on street that do informal cash flow based underwriting in India, right? So by looking at a cow, how many liters of milk it will give, or with the height of a coconut tree, how many coconuts in a particular season, in a particular state it will give, right? All of this information today is captured manually in Excels, in Word documents, etc. If there can be a way where we can pull together all of this data into a structured form, that can probably be a very, I would say, domain-specific LLM that India can create, and very unique way of actually underwriting borrowers for loans, etc., that nobody can match either from West or otherwise. So I would say that is where I think India's roots lie.
So the landscape is fertile, ladies and gentlemen, for artificial intelligence-led companies in India. And of course, a lot of money is also going to be made here. We'll just do some hop, skip, and jump and reach Siddharth. Siddharth, $500 billion invested over the last 3 months in a lot of US companies that are leading this artificial intelligence charge. And look at the NASDAQ, look at the S&P 500, look at our own universe, tons and tons of money is being made. How much of this is hype, hoopla, and bubble?
I think the mantra amongst most of the investors is that the intelligence may be artificial, but the returns really have to be real for that matter. So I think that's something that's been a guiding force. And it is truly astounding to see one nascent industry become so large. 40% of the US GDP growth of the last year happened because of AI-related infrastructure, energy, etc. The AI cohort in terms of private credit in the US, in terms of credit in the US, has actually overtaken the amount of credit taken by banks. This includes your AI companies, your tech companies, the manufacturers who are actually there, the energy companies, and all of them as well. for that matter. There is an astoundingly large amount of money that's actually been chasing these assets as of now because of uncertainty. I think what's become evident is that, especially now that even though we're not in a zero interest rate environment, it's almost become similar to that as of now. People have realized that capital is actually a moat. And they realize, especially when it comes to LLMs for that matter, because of the brute force computation that it employs, the larger the number of GPUs you end up actually having, the stronger your training ends up actually becoming, the more value you can end up actually creating out of that. I think the biggest disruption, so that is the current thinking as of now, but the edge case that's coming up as of now, the two disruptive factors, not going to be people realizing AI is not going to translate to actual gains. It will, for that matter. The true disruption going to happen is people to actually reduce the cost of compute. If you look at the gross margins of any of these companies as of now, they're actually negative. It costs ChatGPT more money to end up actually running a single query than it can ever end up actually making during a year's subscription. Those are actually wild numbers, and ChatGPT can charge up to $20,000. People end up actually paying it. That is the intensity of compute that's actually there. So for AI to actually translate, I think the trends are not going to be more GPUs, larger LLMs, more trillion parameters to end up coming. It'll end up being smaller models that can end up actually being run on the edge, that can end up computing, being specific to a particular task, and do that well. Right about now, AI is the jack of all trades, the master of some. What you actually require is someone who actually has niche application that can be built, and it's not going to be the LLMs that will actually make the most amount of money. Similar to the internet era, the guy who laid the most amount of fiber optic cable actually died. It's the people who actually built upon that. And we've not yet reached a stage where these actual builders have come to the forefront as of now. It's monopolized by compute. The moment we actually start moving to applications, that's where I think India can end up shining. That's where a lot more money will end up being made as well.
Okay. Coming to you, Rahul, you are also on the investment side. Look at the Indian AI landscape and tell us what are the 2 or 3 good points that we should be looking forward to in a country that's resource deficient, as also has been taking all signs from the US market.
Great question. I think if you break the AI ecosystem down into layers, there is a foundational layer, which is where you can call it equivalent of infrastructure is being built, which is the compute, which is the LLMs that Siddharth was referring to. I think this layer is largely being built outside of India. It's not being built in India. There will still be, for the sake of sovereignty, there will be some things like a servam, which will be built out here in India, but rarely will you see infrastructure layer being built in India. Then the next layer is potentially applications, which would be starting from security to consumer applications to business applications. Think anything from the financial infrastructure, for example. Apoorve was referring to applications to parse through trillions of data points in order to become a better lender, or to be serving your customers better, etc. I think that is where a lot of action is happening. And I think finally the third layer is services bolstered by AI, which is where historically India has had a large, services is where India has had a large play, whether it's BPOs or IT services companies. The next generation of those, which is potentially human-in-the-loop service companies with a lot of AI bolstering, is where a lot of action will happen. So I would say from an India standpoint, the application layer and the services layer is potentially where we'll see a lot of big outcomes being created.
And this is where Nithin comes in, ladies and gentlemen, at Bessemer Partners. He's authored a report on what exactly will the existing Indian tech universe shape up over the next 2 or 3 years thanks to AI. Nithin, is this the death knell for companies like Infosys or TCS? Or do you see them morphing into something else over the next 3 years or so?
I think there's an imperative for them to morph, which creates an opening for the AI-first challengers, AI-first startups. And I think it's a rare window for these startups to sort of come in, right? Because currently the incumbents, they've been with these large North American, European enterprises for decades. There's a comfort, familiarity, client context. Therefore, they get a lot of repeat business. And typically when a new service provider goes to them, there's a significant inertia to change or get a new startup in. But I think that when we speak to large enterprise buyers, CXOs in the US, Europe, I think that mindset is starting to change. They're realizing that I can't put all my eggs in that basket as far as AI implementation, AI tools, AI software is concerned. They are talking to a lot of AI startups, a lot of AI first founders, giving them a POC, giving them a pilot, one plant, one use case. And if you're able to impress the client there, they are more than happy to give you a lot of business, right? So that's a big opportunity. It doesn't level the playing field. The incumbents still have a huge advantage of capital and client relationships, etc. But we are seeing some of these, the top 2%, top 3% of these startups break in. And once you break in, you can grow at 400, 500% year on year. Now that is an interesting battle which will play out. So the incumbents obviously are not going to let go so easily. The startups are nimble, best of AI talent, very aggressive on compensation and wealth creation strategies. This is the battle which will play out. Some incumbents will thrive, some incumbents will fall by the wayside, some will probably go and acquire some of these, the most successful startups. But I think it's an interesting battle, but it will create, according to us, a whole new breed of multi-billion-dollar companies which will be operating in a very AI-centric manner and from India.
Okay. Siddharth, coming to you, at the moment, this is the Wild West. Everybody in AI is doing something which nobody has done before, but this also requires a regulation. How do you think is the regulatory universe as far as India is concerned on artificial intelligence in line with the global map that you have in your mind?
I think the one thing I'm very happy that India has done is India hasn't banned AI. I think every time especially as VCs, we've seen this. Anything new comes up, crypto came, they banned it. Real money came, they banned it. I think Uber and Ola have gone through God knows how many bans as of now. You have to check the app to see whether it's working or not. So the fact that India hasn't banned AI is actually a big boon for us. I don't believe anyone's actually written a set of regulations on AI as of now. Biden tried doing it, Trump came, junked everything. The Europeans are trying to do it. I think the biggest export of Europe right now is regulation for the rest of the world. But even they have no idea how to end up actually making that work. The problem is no one can articulate the use case, no one can articulate how pervasive it is. No one can actually differentiate between the use of AI in some of these systems, someone actually trying to do it themselves, someone actually using traditional tools that already exist as of now. It just sort of melds into one. Regulation, I don't think, regulation is an evolving field. I think even in copyright as of now, most of the settlements are actually out of court. No one's actually gone there and tested out whether original art is something that AI can actually take, for that matter. So these are untested fields as of now. The rate of pace of change is massive. I think as far as India is actually concerned, the important thing to do in our regulation is to get rid of this $500 billion economy mindset of trying to control everything, but rather just set the rules of the playground. Here are the things you can't do. Everything else is actually permitted, go with God and end up actually doing it. The more we try to stipulate and have an AI bill, it may sound great, but even if the data protection bill has come out as of now, most of it is put in the rules, and the rules are still awaited for everyone to end up coming out. I don't think these are creatures that can actually be subject to the traditional forms of regulation that exist. So it's an evolving model of jurisprudence, but I think it cannot be left up to politicians, can't be left up to legislators, it cannot be left up to big tech either. It does actually require cross-domain expertise, and I don't think we've seen that happen in any body of law as of now. It's a Wild West, it will continue to be the Wild West, and if you ask me, the best person to write regulation for AI may actually be an AI itself, so that's something we'll have to try.
Apoorve, coming back to you, when you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs in this particular field, or maybe those which are related to financial services, this is something that India has done very well over the last decade or so, the India stack, plus the general acceptance of digital payments. Where do you think are 2 or 3 very strong sectors where Indian AI companies are making their mark?
In financial services?
Broader.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was going to probably add to what Siddharth said, that while there are no regulations, I think in financial services, I think the regulator has a very different point of view. They don't like an intervention of AI till
the portfolio companies.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we were discussing offline, and like while as investors, we always like AI companies or software companies that are being built for the globe, especially for the US. I think there's definitely like room for creating something which solves for India-specific problems. I think AI meets education is definitely something that we are seeing some really good green shoots on. We have backed one company, and I think generally as a consumption category, the subjectivity that education in general that it brings, and the objectification that AI can do with the kind of talent that we have, with the kind of resources that we have, with the kind of fine-tuning that we can do with our engineering expertise. I think education is one sector that we definitely feel will be disrupted massively with AI. we have already seen more than green shoots evolve in AI use case in coding platforms, vibe coding platforms.
So that's financial services, education, and coding.
Yeah, I mean, financial services, I would say, is largely restricted to the point that we've just discussed. Probably it's not being used front and center for underwriting because probably there is a traceability and auditability that is required, and there's obviously hallucinations, and regulator probably doesn't want any systematic risks to be created by artificial intelligence. But a lot of productivity gains, a lot of insights that AI can create while probably originating a loan or underwriting a loan or basically collecting a loan, I think AI has probably started proliferating in. And the beauty lies for AI, and even if it doesn't proliferate into underwriting and financial services, I think if we look at the debt outstanding in this country, $2 trillion of debt, and if we assume like OPEX to AUM ratio of whatever 5%, that's like $100 billion of cost waiting to be disrupted or optimized by AI, right? That itself is like a massive, massive opportunity.
Okay. Rahul, to you, two spaces within the Indian AI universe where you have a lot of hope for in terms of productive investment, which is, people like you writing a decent amount of checks and then reaping a lot of gains. What would be the two spaces over the next 2 years where a lot of money would be made?
Maybe because I should apply an artificial constraint of two spaces. I'll pick a consumer space and I'll pick up an enterprise space. On the consumer side, I think a lot of creativity is being unleashed with AI. Now that creativity can be used either for general purpose entertainment or for companionship or for education. We believe in either of these three cases there will be significantly large companies that will get created over a period of time. So I would say on the consumer side, in creativity as a hook, I would say that is one big space that we are interested in. In fact, we've made an investment alongside 314 as well in that space. Then on the enterprise side, I would say this is today a lot more about productivity or efficiency. It could be either about making your developers a lot more capable of building things, or it could be about companies creating a lot more efficiency in their process. So therefore, within that, I would say one of the spaces we are really interested about is in healthcare, which is how do we create a lot more efficiency in processing health claims, for example, which is today a manual and a complex process, and that can be significantly fastened and done at a significantly reduced cost using AI. So these two spaces, I would say, are very, very interesting for us today.
Okay. Nitin, to you, somewhere about 25 years ago, there was a wonderful report written by McKinsey which said, Sone ki chidiya.
Sorry.
Sone ki chidiya. It was a report on Indian IT services. Those who've covered this space would remember that. And a very, very positive picture was painted by McKinsey, which the sector actually overtook. All those targets were met and exceeded upon. We are now at a stage where a lot of companies in the traditional tech space seem to be in their matured phase and showing growth rates of below Indian GDP growth rates. Do you think there will come a time over the next 5 years or so where the Indian IT sector will be rejuvenated again because of AI?
I think there's a very interesting phenomenon which will play out over the next 3 to 5 years, which is a step change in outsourcing. So outsourcing globally has obviously been increasing, right? Software or even CX and all sorts of back office operations. Steadily, more and more of it from Europe and US has come, and India has been a big beneficiary of that. I think AI completely changes the equation there because a lot of very complex cross-functional use cases involves massive interaction with supplier, supply chain, customer ecosystems still are done in-house by large teams or done by vendors based in those markets just because proximity is important. I think as AI tools get smarter, vertical AI and horizontal AI solutions get smarter, CXOs will be a lot more willing to outsource even those complex use cases. So we actually believe that there'll be a step change and willingness that outsourcing can either happen to a very smart AI-first software or to a very proficient software backed by a human in the loop. right? Depending on the kind of use case. And that, I think, creates an entirely new TAM, in our estimate, probably like an $150 billion TAM on top of the 260 billion.
Will there come a day when Indian software exports will exceed Saudi oil exports? They do? I don't think so.
No, we do. I think the Indian, this is something we actually covered. India software exports more. Indian software exports actually end up exceeding Saudi oil. I think we're about 275, 300 billion. Saudi is about 250 odd billion. 250,
That's because oil is at 65.
Look at the current prices, right?
But I think the important thing to note is, look, there is a $400 billion opportunity or whatever. There's a massive opportunity.
Okay.
But it's a level playing field. The Indian software startup or the Indian services AI first startup is competing with the Silicon Valley, is competing with a player in London or in Eastern Europe. So it is there. I think Indian startups have an absolutely great advantage in going and grabbing it, but it's not, we can't assume that all of it will naturally come to India.
Okay, one final question to all four of you. When you wake up every day in the morning, is it an exciting space to be? Is there a crisis of plenty in terms of investments, or is it a dull day?
I think there's a lot more money chasing a lot fewer assets, so we have to be finding that needle in the haystack is now actually finding a needle in a field, for that matter, for most of us. And it's become really hard as an investor to call BS on some of the things you end up saying. It looks pretty, it works great, but unless you know, you actually have foundational knowledge about how it works, or your domain expertise, there's a very high chance of actually getting fooled. So AI has made it easier for people to start fooling investors. And from our side, the diligence AI is yet to end up picking up and calling out that kind of BS. So exciting times, but a lot more money chasing far fewer assets.
Rahul?
I would say this is a time when real intelligence comes into play. If you want to be sorting out the needle in the field, there is real intelligence that needs to happen, which is about foundational awareness, but also the ability to apply judgment. Because guess what? Anything that we look at today may or may not be relevant 6 months later. So really, what are you investing in? You're investing in essentially in a founder or a set of founders, right? And their capability. So yeah, it's a very, very exciting time. Needless to say, maybe waking up in the morning is a different thing. Are you able to go to sleep is another thing.
Wonderful. Apoorve, very quickly.
No, I would say probably very exciting times. I think lots to learn as an investor. I think the amount, the sheer number of unique use cases that some of the founders are solving are like just great to watch. Obviously, Siddharth is absolutely right. As investors with fiduciary responsibility to manage someone else's capital, you have to be very, very careful that you don't invest in fads.
Right.
A company today and probably nothing tomorrow. But yeah,
Nithin, 20 seconds.
I think there are 50 startups now solving every use case in every vertical and every horizontal, right? Only one of them is probably going to survive like 24 months down the line. So it's not easy to find that one, but it's super exciting.
Okay, survival for the fittest, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause for the panel.
Thank you. It was a wonderful session. Huge round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, may I also call upon stage Mr. Siddharth Basu Chatterjee and Masuma Parekh to both come upon stage and present a token of appreciation to all our panelists. And a warm round of applause there. Big Our next session, ladies and gentlemen, is titled AI Playbook for India. This session brings together visionary CTOs to actually share strategies, frameworks,